Well, I want to hear a little bit about your journey, but first, if we could just get an idea of kind of where you're coming from to the PhD, what prompted you to do it?
My driving motivator is so my research interest is in gender-based violence. So that includes domestic violence, sexual assault, and marginalized populations specifically, because I come, from multiple marginalized populations. I have seen how, like the screening tools and the different kinds of assessments and interventions that are available just are not addressing survivors' needs. And that really drew me to research specifically because I knew that the screeners and the interventions that we have are based on research. So I knew that in order to change how those things worked so that they would be more effective, I had to go all the way back to kind of the first step in that, production line. What drew me to psychology, that's where I'm interested in getting a PhD, is just experiences that I've had in my life. My parents are immigrants. I grew up in, New York City, witnessing domestic violence, just got me interested in psychology as a whole. And then once I got to undergrad, I realized that I was interested in research. And that's really what, put me on the path of pursuing a PhD because I knew, and this is different for different disciplines, but for psychology specifically, you don't have to get a master's degree before you get a doctoral degree. So I wanted to spend as little time as possible in school. So,
Okay. Oh,
yeah,
well, I want to ask about that because this trips up a lot of people, this like, am I qualified thing? And like, I think what is lovely about the PhD is there are not a ton of hard rules, but then
mhm.
that's also difficult because you're like, it's a little open-ended. So could you describe your qualifications and what you felt like before you started the process?
I found you through Instagram probably in like 2021, like
Okay.
pretty like, almost 2 years before I, interacted with you and joined the program. And I spent like a year and a half really thinking about it because it's a, pretty good investment that I have to make like financially in order to, join the program and, do my PhD, just the amount of time that you have to invest in submitting, writing applications, submitting applications. I knew like I really had to think about it because of my background and the life that I've had leading up to, applying for the PhD. I didn't have a lot of flexibility with time and resources, and a lot of people don't, even if they don't come from my background. So I knew that if I was going to do it, I wanted to do it right. I wanted to get in the first time. And because I was applying to clinical psychology programs, like the most competitive, I'm pretty sure that's what you hear, right? I think that's because it's the most popular. I'm not sure why actually. But I knew that I was running a high risk of having to reapply if I applied to clinical psychology programs. So um, we can talk about this later. And I ended up applying to a couple of other different kinds of programs, but that's down the road. So the research experience that I had was kind of limited, and you know, relative to the amount of research experience that other clinical psych, undergraduates or master's level even graduates would have. And because I'm not coming into the master's, I really needed to make sure that my application would be competitive in every single way possible imaginable within my control, which is what drew me to the program, the Fearless Grad program, because I knew also you're from Michigan, so obviously I had to choose you. But yeah, your story just really, drew me in just how, you saw a gap. You wanted to address the low rate of people who get to the PhD level, people from marginalized backgrounds. And knowing that, and having that aligned with my own interests, I knew that, it would provide me with the right support so that I could make myself the most competitive. Research experience wise, I have about 2 years, give or take probably a couple of months of research experience just as an RA, so research assistant.
Mhm.
I had not published, I hadn't done any kind of conference
Mm.
when I was applying. After I applied, I did do one conference.
Mhm.
Um, but so I was coming in pretty weak, honestly, compared to other clinical psych applicants that were applying. And I knew just from speaking to other graduate students, to faculty, and you just hear about it a lot that you have to be, like you need multiple publications and you need multiple conferences under your belt before you apply.
Okay, okay. So yeah, I have so many things. Like first
Mhm.
you were like, "Oh, I only have 2 years of experience." Like which is I mean,
I still
amazing.
say that. I know I still say that, but it's really hard to let go of that when you hear it
Sure.
so often.
Sure. And so like, A, that's amazing. Like some people will have zero, or some people will have a few months, or you're right, or some people may have 5 years. But usually I say if you've got a couple months, like 6 months or so, like
Oh
you
yeah, you're fine.
exactly. So
Yeah.
like, um, so yeah, kind of working through that of like what is enough. And then also the thing which I think you hit on, which is like you started applying and you still kept working, right? You still kept, it's not like you have to have everything buttoned up just to start the process. Like you're learning and gaining through the process. And so that way I had a
Oh
difficult,
yeah.
like,
Absolutely.
yeah, they were like, oh, I got it. Applications were due like December. And she's like, oh, I got an RA role in November. And like, it's still, I know. And like, it's still
Gotta get really
healthcare.
close.
I know.
No, but I
But
get that. Yeah. I got a extra. So I had experience in just one lab. I really wanted to diversify like the kind of experience that I had because I had like mixed methods experience, but I wanted more quant experience because clinical programs are heavy on quant usually. Um, it's funny because I ended up in a qual program, but that's beside the point. So I joined a second lab in June, the same, year that I applied. So I only had about 5-ish months of extra experience going in, but that in those 5 months, I gained so much experience. Like, so
Mhm.
when you were mentioning the 2 years, I remembered that a lot of the previous applicants, like applicants from other years, that have been unsuccessful, have told me in conversation with them that they had several years of research experience, like way more than me. They had publications, they had conference presentations under their belt, and that didn't make them a shoe in,
Mm.
getting into the programs. So, like you were saying, learning throughout like the process of applying, just I went through so much change, like in my research interest, in understanding who I am as a person. Like just the process of applying was really transformative for me. And I don't think I would have gotten that if it wasn't for this program because it really helped put me in the right mindset when I was approaching applying. I wasn't I didn't feel so much like it was a rat race,
Mm.
where I was comparing myself to other people and like I was trying to be competitive, but I wasn't trying to be competitive to the point of where I was, like comparing myself directly with other people.
Yes. It's like I want to run my own best race, like for me. Like I know what I want to do for me. I'm pushing myself and like, yeah, eventually you are gonna, crossing the finish line with other people, but like what they do and how they run literally doesn't affect you.
It
So like,
doesn't mean anything. Yeah, it doesn't mean it.
yeah, be the best you. I love that. And like, yeah, I love that we hopefully provide the space and like ideas to your point, iterate, evolve, grow, like that's part of the process. And I love that hopefully you will come in stronger because the PhD, right, like
Hmm.
has so many other ups and downs that you're going to face. Like part of
Definitely.
part of my goal is like to help you guys start in a really strong position so that way when you do go up and down, you're not going to hit as low, right? Like you're going to bounce back and
Oh, yeah,
that's
my confidence has gone like it's just when getting into this, like that's why it took me a year and a half, really, like a year and a half, 2 years to even believe that I was capable of really like winning the application process because that's what it felt like. I was in like when people say, not to think that you're directly competing with another applicant, like they're your competition, and that's the language that's usually used. I saw it as I was competing with myself. So if my confidence dipped, I had to do something to raise it. Like if I didn't, then that would really directly reflect the amount of work that I was putting into the applications, how I showed up at interviews.
Mhm.
So I knew that I needed to work on that more than really anything else throughout the entire process of applying.
Mm.
And the program gave me a good foundation for that.
I'm super analytical and I'm so caught up in like the tangible things like, oh, we teach you how to write and we teach you this. But if you're right, the foundation isn't there, if the confidence isn't there, it doesn't matter what you write because
Oh yeah.
it's not going to be as powerful. So like it's the intangible stuff that directly influences the tangible things, obviously. But yeah, it's you can't quite put your finger on, but like
Yeah, you can't. Yeah.
they do change everything. So it took you a year and a half to kind of decide to like move forward. And so what was that stress like before you started working with us? Like what was that frustration you were working through? And then like how did that change?
I was scared. I was just like, there's no other way to describe it. I had heard from everyone and their brother that, the process was complicated, that it was a lot more overwhelming than they ever thought before they got into it. And then once they got into it, like I was hearing, you know, from a lot of grad students that they had to apply 3, 4 times. And I didn't want to apply 3, 4 times.
Mm.
I honestly, I don't think emotionally I could handle it having to apply a second or third time. I admire you really for
Mm.
that level of dedication, but I just knew that emotionally I wouldn't be able to do it. And time wise, resource wise, I don't think I would have been able to do it because it costs money, like hundreds of dollars each time you apply. So, what was your question?
So that was the frustration before, and then what was the point when you felt like this program was working for you?
That's a great question. Pretty early on, actually. So I, like was watching each of the weekly meetings that we had. My boyfriend would, walk in on me watching one, and it would be a completely like something that was not relevant, right? Like
Mm.
maybe that you were discussing with somebody. And so he would ask me, like, why are you watching that? Like, it's because right now I'm done with the interview stage, but when I was at the interview stage, I was watching old videos from like the year before. Even, if somebody was picking programs, it puts me in the right, mindset, like the right space in order to begin doing this work. Without that community, I don't think I would have been able to do that connection because like I know a couple of people who are applying, but we don't talk like on a regular basis. It's not like I can call them each time I'm trying to get to work, right? So that co-working space kind of that I would go into by watching the videos and getting into that mood kind of, if that makes sense. I don't know if this is making any sense.
No,
Okay.
I love it. I love it. I
So
think
that really early on, was really helpful for me.
okay, it kind of like set the tone, kind of like your commute to work and kind of reminded you that you're not alone, reminded you that everybody's having similar questions and then kind of almost you so like I read the book Atomic Habits, so it's very similar, like you were setting up
I have
your
to. Yeah.
your habits. You were just like, this thing leads to
Yeah.
this thing,
Yeah.
leads to that, and then it didn't feel hard, right? Because I know that's a lot of people struggle with. Like, I open my laptop and like the internet, right? It's just
Yeah.
like,
You don't know what to do. Like it's because I could have looked at programs for forever, right? The program that I accepted an offer from, I found out about the program 2 weeks before the deadline. And it was because like I was clued into all different kinds of resources. You helped with that a lot at the beginning. I know you're, telling us to use every resource possible at the
yeah.
beginning to find programs. And yeah, so I could have taken forever, finding programs. And then with the SOP writing process, which is already really difficult, I could have continued editing my SOP for forever. But
Mhm.
I needed, strict guidelines for when I should stop. And they moved, right? Because I didn't follow, exactly what I had set out to do in August.
Yeah.
Having that framework really allowed me to get the work done at a good pace so that I never felt like I was completely overwhelmed,
Mhm.
despite the number of programs that I ended up having to apply to be competitive.
How many did you apply to?
10.
That's a lot, but it's not too
It's
much.
it's good for
Yeah.
like because people who are applying to clinical psych end up applying to like 14, 15, 16 schools sometimes,
Woof.
which I could not do.
So you started off thinking about clinical and then you ended up applying to, could you just describe how your process changed and what you kind of decided to do?
Going into it, I knew that I wanted a program that was multidisciplinary, that did intersectional research, so looking at different ways that people are minoritized, and then seeing how they interact with each other, those systems. And I knew that I wanted to take a feminist approach. That's really specific, obviously, that's pretty niche. And a lot of clinical spaces just are not doing that. In different years, that would be different. So that led me naturally to social psych. You can't practice as a clinician, you're not trained that way.
Mm.
So that was something I really had to think about. Like, would I be happy not doing that kind of work with that kind of training? And at the end of the day, and the whole process of applying helped me realize like I care about the research more than the clinician aspect of it because I can always try and get a master's or an LP degree afterwards where I could practice, but the program and the research fit, like that mattered more to me. And as you know, that matters more generally to, you know, getting into a program that led me to counseling psych programs where you can practice as a clinician. So I ended up applying to women and gender studies and psych dual programs. There are only two in the country, so those two. And
Wow.
then social psych programs, counseling psych programs, and clinical psych programs.
Okay. So I love that because I think some people get hung up on the department name. And
Yeah.
like, I think the higher we go up, we realize things start to like get broken
Yes.
down and not as rigid. And so I like that you let your own knowledge and like knowing kind of guide where you were going. And
Mhm.
so, okay, so you ended up applying to 10 programs and tell me about the interview phase. How did that work?
I'm laughing because I was pretty lucky. I got interview invites pretty early on in December, which is rare. Usually you get them around January, February. So I had a lot of time to prepare. Because of the amount of time that I had, I really was able to practice and kind of like going back to why I wanted to even do the PhD. It brought me back to like the first couple of modules in the course where I was thinking about what my goals were. So going back to that, kind of getting out of that kind of like technical headspace where I was writing like, should I use this word or that word on my SAT, right? Um, the interview process was brutal.
You digital in person? How did it go?
Both. I
Both.
had in person, one in person, and then the rest were digital.
Okay.
I ended up with four interviews. So I ended up not going, but it was a school that I wasn't too interested in. They were pretty well spread out. I will say the in-person interviews did go a lot better because of the practice kind of that I had from the online versions. Overall, I think I did a good job. I showed up as myself. I don't think I would have done that without this program.
Mm.
I would have just been like too much in my own head about the kind of person who has to go to these interviews and the kind of version of myself that has to perform.
Did you participate in that?
Yeah, I did.
I think it's fun and like you get to
Yeah.
work with other folks and that stuff too, so that's cool.
Yeah, it was nice hearing how other people were answering questions. That helped me think about like how I should be answering questions, because if you look online there are very 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 few resources that help you really with like the technical aspects of doing the interview. Like generally they tell you, talk about, be yourself, like all the soft skill stuff. Real like practice aspect was missing out of all the resources that I found online, which I did get with the interview prep session, which was really helpful.
Cool, cool. Yeah, I'm glad. Were
Mhm.
there any lows throughout this process? It's obviously going to have some up and downs. So what challenges did you work through and how did that look?
Waiting.
Uh,
After interviews, I did, when I tell you I did not anticipate that that would be so hard.
oh,
Applying was easy compared to having to wait to hear back from the programs.
okay.
I think a lot of people will tell you that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If my interviews were closer together, I don't think it would have been as bad. But because they were
Mhm.
so far spread apart, I was waiting from January till now
That
for
is
all of my
100%.
response. That's a very long time to wait.
Yeah. So you got offers. Like, how does it
Mhm.
feel to be on the other side? How does your life feel now?
Insane. I I'm kind of still in shock. I know I shouldn't be, but and I mentioned this in the Slack group, but this whole process was really overall really enjoyable for me. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about what I want, for my future. So overall, I really valued kind of like that growth that I went through applying. And coming out of it now, I still, because it didn't feel hard almost, which
Hmm.
is insane kind of to say that it
Mhm.
wasn't hard. It was hard. It took a lot of work.
Hmm.
I had a really disciplined approach to that because of the support and the foundation that I got from the program. Um, so coming out of it now, I'm still like, am I done? Like this is over, which is really funny.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Well, two things. So like I think the point is valid. Someone gave the example, which is like, okay, you could run a marathon because you're like excited and like race day and you got your shoes on, or you can run a marathon because someone's got a gun pointed to your head and you're like freaking the F out, right? Like you're
Yeah,
still going to
totally.
do the same thing. You're going to do the 26 miles, but like it's going to feel completely different.
Yeah.
So to your point, like, you know, not, you're right. This wasn't easy. You were still running a long marathon.
It was
And
hard. It was
yeah,
hard. Having to look at my statement of purpose every day for months was very hard.
but like you got to do it because you were choosing to do it and like you were like going with, your intention versus like running away from, fear or like anxiety. You got to run towards something, which
Yeah,
is
that fear that I had before joining the program and applying dissipated pretty quickly after joining the program because I was finally in a community where everyone else was also doing the same thing.
mm,
And it didn't feel so like exceptional because it is an exceptional process, right? Like
mm,
I don't even know what the percentage is, like 2%, 3%,
yeah,
uh, like the acceptance rates for these programs. So, and even fewer make it through, like half of the, people leave
right.
through their program if they never get their PhD. So it felt less special, which is great. It felt more normal
Mm,
because people from all kinds of backgrounds were doing it. And I
mhm.
don't think I would have found that community otherwise, where I
Yeah.
was connected with so many people who are also applying.
Oh, thank you. I love it. Yeah, I love our group. They are super unique and supportive. Everyone's excited for everybody. Because
Mhm.
again, it's like you're doing your best, I'm doing my best. And like, did you do you connect with other folks? And like, because some
Oh
people
yeah.
do that. They like have little, side chats and things. And
Oh
so,
yeah, 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 all the time. Like after I offered to, help provide other resources or advice like specific to the psych
yeah.
area, I had a handful of people reach out and I got kind of overwhelmed because I expected like one person maybe.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, after I did that, I was like, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't have said anything.
Well,
Because I wanted to give them the help they needed. I
I
ended up
appreciate it.
meeting with somebody over Zoom, and we had like we could have talked forever. Like, it was so nice. Yeah,
Oh, good.
wanting to give back because really invested in this
Oh,
like process, like in general.
yeah.
I'm definitely going to be involved in like mentorship spaces after I start my program. I got mentorship through
Mhm.
like site specific places, which also helped with that
Mhm.
aspect of applying. So yeah, without it, I don't think I would have been able to apply.
We have a consult call and like there's just so much stress and unknown and like it's so hard to reassure somebody because I can't predict the future. I can't be like you will get this exact,
If
outcome.
only you could. Yeah, if only you could.
So it's hard like you kind of have to both agree that you're very, good candidate and like we're going to work as hard as we can and then create amazing things, but like no guarantees. And that's hard.
Yeah. But I knew like if even if I didn't get in the first time, like you do offer to help again for a second cycle.
Yep.
So I had that safety net in case it didn't work out the first time, which was also reassuring.
I like to do that to bring the stress level down because it's
Yeah, it
like
does a lot.
I'm
Yeah.
just like, there's no need to layer on more stress. Okay. Okay. So you accepted an offer at what kind of program?
Counseling psych. When I was telling like what I was telling you before, I had to make concessions in, what program I would because I have no control really over what program I was going to get into, whether it was social psych or a clinical or counseling program. So I kind of had to come to terms with the fact that I might not be able to practice as a clinician, and that really came back, at the end when I was considering offers.
Oh, what
Mhm.
what kind of offers did you get? Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, I got an offer for a social psych program, a clinical program, and a counseling program. So I
Okay.
all three.
Okay, what schools?
UMass Amherst. Is it Miami University? Miami University
Okay.
and University of Nebraska, Lincoln.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, very diverse, very different, and like in three separate subdisciplines. So then you did make your decision, which is so exciting. What are you looking forward to between like now and starting in the fall?
Moving is going to be. I've been in Michigan for a while now, but I'm really just looking forward to finally getting into a space where I'm surrounded by the thing that I've been interested in for I don't even know how many years now, 10 years. Um, I took a break during undergrad. I left for a couple of years because of personal issues. And coming back, I knew that I had a very specific goal in mind. Everything about how I crafted the rest of my undergrad years was with that goal in mind. Like I work a midnight shift right now, and it's because I wanted the ability to apply, with as much time as I could, as much effort as I could put towards it. And that schedule would allow me to do that. I graduated in 3 years with my undergrad, 2 years with my undergrad because I took like 20 something credits a semester.
I remember that. I remember you telling me that. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. I don't recommend that anyone else do that. I do not the stress, but I did it and I had a really specific goal in mind to get into a program my first try.
Okay,
So
cool.
pinch me. Like I still can't believe it.
That's amazing. That's so good. Would you recommend the Fearless Grad program to others? And if so, why?
No, I wouldn't. Like, yes, of course I would. You'll find in the program whatever you need out of it. I just needed guidance. If I had a question, I could, send you the question over Slack. You'd respond within like a day, which is insane, even on the weekends. And I just needed that reassurance, the guidance throughout the entire process because I didn't want to miss something because I didn't know about it. And there's a hidden curriculum, right, with applying to the PhD. So, especially in psych, especially for people from marginalized backgrounds like myself. So, and I didn't have family. I didn't have friends who had been through this process, so I couldn't pick their brains about it. And you can always, hit up a graduate student, but I wouldn't have even done that if I hadn't gone through the program because I would have thought that that was something you couldn't do.
So you networked a lot throughout this,
I
right?
did a lot. Yeah,
How
a
did that
lot.
go for you? Like, because people are scared to do it.
Yes, I was terrified. That was one of the easier things
Mhm.
because of the encouragement that you give us through the program. You had examples for how to email faculty, how to, conduct those interview meetings, like informal interviews, basically, right? You're just getting information. Without those resources, I don't think I would have ever done it because I wouldn't have known where to start with
Mhm.
contacting them. Like having, um, an action step for them to do, in the response. Because I was kind of like, I'm emailing them, telling them I'm interested, but what do they care? Like, what
Mhm.
does it matter that I'm interested? But there was this specific way of emailing them, including certain information that I wouldn't have thought to include.
Oh, good. Well, I'm so glad. And like, I love the networking step because it's like you get to talk to other,
Oh, it was fun.
yeah, like
Yeah,
other
it was
nerds
fun.
who
Yeah.
like care about what you care about and like, and
Mm,
yeah, yeah, that's
yeah.
great.
It gives you so much information because I
Mhm.
would say even if you're scared, to reach out to faculty, um, just do it because like if they don't like you, then they don't like you. If you, F up, you F up. But if they judge you for that, then you know not to apply to that program. Like
Mhm.
at that point, you get so much information. And
Mhm.
that connection really matters. That's how I ended up applying to one of the programs because I just ended up at their diversity recruitment event, University of Michigan. And I ended up meeting with a professor there and networking with them in that way. And I wouldn't have sought out that recruitment weekend if I hadn't, known about the importance of networking with people before
Mhm.
applying. And it's
Okay.
because of that connection that she remembered me, I'm
Yeah.
assuming. And I was invited to interview. I mean, they had like 1,200 applicants, so which is insane, absolutely insane. And I wouldn't have gotten to that point if it wasn't for that conversation.
So good. So good. Okay. Any like, oh, what was like the most surprising thing either you learned about the process or about yourself through this?
That I
Like,
could do this. I was telling my boyfriend, we were talking about moving and I was getting really nervous. I was like, I don't know if I should accept here because it's further than this place. And he's like, don't let that stop you. Like, you applied, you got offers like a year ago, me a year ago. What month is this? March. I wouldn't have believed that I would have gotten so many offers my first try. People, like I was telling you, people with 5 years of experience, 3 publications, people who are lab managers don't get offers. And that really showed me like I could really do whatever I want to do if I, prepare enough.
mhm.
I didn't have that confidence before. That was the most surprising thing that came out of all of this. It's gonna, impact my work, impact my confidence. It's already impacted my confidence, obviously, but just how I approach my PhD for years to come, and my career even after that, like because I knew all of these things were in me. I didn't know if I was the only one who thought that. And so this process kind of like showed me that all the years of work that I put in through undergrad, through taking so many classes, doing internships, working full time, like that was worth something. That
Okay.
was the most surprising and most, wonderful thing that came out of this process.
That is cool. That is cool. It's like, yeah, you didn't seek out like become more confident. Like that wasn't a thing on your to-do list,
Not at
but
all. No.
it directly impacted your
Mhm.
result. It's going to have dividends for years to come, which I
Oh
love.
yeah.
You're going to have so much fun when you start. One of our clients, she said she started and like, they go around the room, like, 12 people who start and like, oh, introduce yourselves or whatever. And like, what do you want to do? And she said she was the only one who would confidently be like, this is what I want to research. This is like what I'm interested in. And of
I had
course,
that happen during interviews. I had that happen. I was the only one during every single interview that I had who could confidently ask questions and make comments when the faculty, member commented on something. I was polite. I wasn't rude.
sure, sure. Yeah, yeah.
um, but I could see like the fear that the other applicants had, and I
Mhm.
knew where it was coming from because I was that person.
Mhm.
Without this program, I would have been that person. Um, and I noted that even in talking to other people that that confidence came from that, and that was the reason why I was able to do that.
Yes, yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes,
So you're
yes.
right.
Okay, cool. Anything else you want to share?
Just do it. Try it. You don't want to regret it. Because I, like I said, I'm coming back to undergrad. How old am I now? I just turned 26. So by the time I'm done, I'm going to be like 32, but I'm going to be 32 anyways. So I would rather have tried, and not gotten in than never tried at all. And I knew like I had switched careers so many times. Like I was in
Mm,
veterinary medicine before I
mm,
came back to psychology. I was an English major, an African American studies major, ADHD, I think. I kept coming back to wanting to practice as a clinician, but having more options than just practicing as a clinician. And the more I got to know about the PhD, the more I just couldn't stop thinking about it and kept coming back to it. So give it a try, honestly. You can get fee waivers for applications if you come from a marginalized background. Like, don't let that be a barrier. There are resources for you, even including this program, and I think it's worth the investment totally.
thank you
So you're
so
welcome.
much. Thank you. Oh, let me hit the stop button.